Yes,
I don't want to comment on that. I just wanted to comment on, I wonder if people have the same understanding of what political means. I suspect in this audience, people will have very different views about what political means, because it seems to me that the people for Dickens see it as personal politics, a bit like had actually started to be the case in England, whereby people had got fed up with party politics and were being political in single issue things. So all in the press and things, you said there were people who were choosing not to vote, but they would go on a demonstration against the war in Iraq, or they would fight for their local school or their local hospital, and they would be political in that small way, which was defined for them. You know, for them, that was the politics that they could understand, and it sounds like that was Dickens' type of politics that he could understand when he thought about the fall of women who were homeless. Then he had this burning desire to do something himself, and obviously it came through in his writing, and maybe it came through in his personal action. But I think there's another sort of politics, which more the other side you're talking about, which is more where you do have mass movements. So you might have something like a Russian Revolution, or you may have something in Great Britain whereby everything's turned on its head, and Liberal Democrats are in league with Conservatives, something which was quite difficult for most of us to imagine. But so I think we probably all have very different understandings of what being political is, and therefore it's practically an impossible question to answer, because in many ways probably...
I don't think you can separate make a kind of a massive division for party politics and individual politics, because I mean the Russian Revolution wouldn't have happened if individual people hadn't had. So I think that the whole idea of the individual's own belief about how they want their own world to be is the essence of politics, whether you're a politician in Westminster or whether you're just somebody trying to campaign to keep your local school open. It's the same.
Revolution may not have happened if there hadn't been particular individuals who were particularly good strategic thinkers, like Lenin.
Yeah, but the people were ready to rise up, weren't they?
Well, there has to be a combination, and both parts are necessary.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Both. That's what I'm saying. You can't separate them. Both parts are necessary. Yeah.
British trade idea I have that we've all actually got very
views
about politics meaning.
Anything you want to say, David?
Yeah, there's quite a lot I want to say. But I think, and it does very much touch on this last point that you're making. I think the game was given away by Lucinda's story about the American mill owner who went to see Dickens and decided to give his people Christmas Day off. And I think that actually of Dickens all too often. Now, whether or not that's entirely his own fault or not, I think is another matter. Actually, I think it is. I mean, he chose what to write and what to emphasise, and he chose what he decided to. So it's such an act of, if you like, kind of philanthropy that changes almost nothing. I mean, politics is about...
But actually change the working hours of people.
Well, hold on, I don't think that can be laid at Dickens' door. I think Lord Shaftesbury has an awful lot.
When they stopped, everybody had to work on Christmas Day, and then suddenly people were saying you don't have to work on Christmas Day.
Okay, but think about what that actually means. Politics is about how society is organised and how resources are distributed. That's essentially what politics is about, and the way in which you try to take those decisions. So the question you have about Dickens is, what is his attitude towards the ordinary people of the country having power and having more of that resource distributed to them by themselves? And the answer is, you cannot find out. You do not know. All you know is if Scrooge is a better man at the end of Christmas Carol than he is at the beginning, then the Cratchits get their turkey. And he also gives, it's going to be nice and Bob, and there never was a man after that day who kept Christmas as well as Scrooge. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And as I said, this is during a period in the 19th century of incredible ruptures. I mean, after all, Dickens becomes a teenager into the period of the Great Reform Act of 1832, covered in Middlemarch, as you will see. He is adult by the time the Tolpuddle Martyrs are set, because there is that are sent to Australia, because by that time there are already the attacks on the combinations. What is Dickens's attitude towards working people trying to exercise some degree of power through trades unions? Other than what you find in Hard Times within the novels, is you will not be stopped. Yet this is one of the big issues of the time. The Chartists present their petition. It's not an abstract petition. It's not an abstraction about if you behave a bit better. What it says is there should be universal suffrage. It says that everybody should have a vote. It says that MPs should be paid so that they're just not the scions of noble families. Do we know what Dickens, will we even guess from Dickens' writing that such a thing happened in England during this time? Or that there were revolutions in 1848? You won't. All that he says is, and this is the point that Orwell's making, is it's by moral example, if X justifies, that you end up not with the factory owner allowing there to be a properly organised trade union within the factory to negotiate conditions and votes for those workers. You end up with the factory owner saying, everything is sold if I give them Christmas Day off, and aren't I a good guy? Difference between Orwell, Dickens illustrated.
And if I could just add one tiny point to that, at any time in almost Dickens' novels, when even in the most innocuous ways, ordinary people start to get together and organise themselves, and even something so innocuous as the footman's society, the footman's soiree in Pickwick Papers, then Dickens will start sneering at them because they're getting above themselves. You see, this is dangerous. They don't know their station, exactly.
Now, wait a minute, because we've got two lined up already. We're going to run out of time. This is dreadful. The gentleman over there.
A little comment about Dickens and attention to detail. Dickens wrote a pamphlet just illustrating the nonsense of the procedure for getting patents in the UK. And this was instrumental in a revision of UK patent law to something that was sensible and much more straightforward.
Actually, if I can just say, the character that he assumes, that the man who is speaking in that article is a Chartist and describes himself as a Chartist with Dickens's approval. You're talking about the patent law reform, which actually was achieved largely as a result of Dickens's
law, that he did so much. But also we were talking very much about his novels, but I mean in his journalism, he's actively going out there trying to make changes. I mean, he goes out with the police, he, as Michael said, campaigns against the death penalty. He does an incredible amount of reform in his journalism, and that's coming out just as frequently as his novels. Every week.
He wanted copyright reformed because he was being swindled by American publishers.
That's what every other writer.
He was far more than anybody else. I mean, it was obvious.
But it wasn't the only thing he campaigned about. I mean, in the 1830s, when nobody was talking about it, Dickens was writing about illegitimacy and saying it's not the child's fault. Nobody else was doing that. He put all these kind of things into his books. And I mean, what were the sweeping changes that Orwell brought about, like the closing of the Yorkshire schools, like whether you like it or not, the change in factory working hours, the fact that the mill owners and people were saying, yes, we're going to change their working, because it's disgusting that they're working these hours. And Dickens also campaigned for child labour laws. He wrote many, many articles. He went down to mines to see small boys who were, whose job it was to keep the mine shaft open so that people didn't suffocate. He wrote all these articles about the campaign for child labour laws, but
he never was elected them up.
I'm beginning to realise that this debate is going to turn upon whether the motion relates to political writing or political novelists. We might have to have more than one vote.